Hello and welcome to Making a Difference. I am your host, Tara Redfield, founder of the blog Another Day Greener. Today, my guest is Amanda Squiemphen-Yazzie. She is the campaign manager for Carina Miller, as well as an enrolled member of the Confederate Tribes of Warm Springs. I hope you guys enjoy today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, Amanda.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now as Carina's campaign manager.
Yeah, so as Carina's campaign manager, I am working on a number of things, working on volunteer outreach, phone banking, and just trying to keep the campaign going up until November, until the general election, which is happening November 3rd, 2020, and last day to register to vote is October 13th here in Oregon.
Fantastic. And yes, as we all know, this is a very important election cycle, obviously on a national level, but also on a local level as well. So what are some of the things Carina's running on? What's part of her platform?
Yeah, so Carina, she of course, believes in water, environment, education. So if you're not familiar right now, there's a huge water crisis happening specifically on the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. And, there's just a lack of access to water right now to about 60% of the residents. And going into environment, that's just a really big one for all people across the world, pretty much.
Yeah.
When we leave out the environment, I think that's just like the main foundation of every single one of us, honestly. And that's kind of where Karina's at too. And that just goes into, we're in rural Oregon where forest fires are the reality of a lot of our summers. Going into climate change, there's just so much that happens. And with education, Carina, she's very bold on education, and that's just where we're kind of at.
Yeah, well, I'm very much supportive. Obviously, environment is incredibly important right now, as well as education, the way teachers are treated. Obviously, we can get more into that, but that's so great. I'm so thrilled about her campaign, and I'm glad you got to share that with our listeners today. For everyone who's in Central Oregon, remember to check out Carina Miller. She's running for District number 30. Is that right?
Yeah, Oregon Senate District 30. And I think I should add just a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah. So just going a little deeper into her platforms, I think with education, so a big thing that she believes is like, when it comes to the trades across Oregon, like that's really important. Like it's not only depending on what we learn in the books, it's also like what we're physically doing with our hands. There are so many out here who should be going to trade school or should have access to it, and
Yeah.
there are so many who that's just something that she really believes is returning that to teaching trades in public education. I know personally, I grew up and had the privilege of being able to do welding, like metals, and that was taken out of schools. So that's something she's a strong supporter of when it comes to that. And then leaning into our teachers, like allowing them to get more funding to be able to properly educate our many students that go through the education system.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. We're all very aware of like the education system being very underfunded and not getting the resources they need to be able to thrive and teach their students.
Yeah, definitely. And also I totally agree with that, with the keeping the classes where you're working with your hands, you're making that connection. And also I think it's important too to get kids outside,
Right.
and because you build that appreciation for the land you're growing up on, for your surroundings. I was lucky. I went to school in Sisters, and when I was in high school, they started this kind of outdoor integration education system. So like we got to go, we hiked the South Sister and then incorporated like science and history and all these things kind of into that. Which, yeah, I just think, and especially when we live in a beautiful state like Oregon, that's such a great way to make young people appreciate the environment and have respect for it,
Right. Yeah, I love that. And that's definitely like Carina full circle when it comes to, when it comes to education, like you can't go without talking about the environment, talking about the water, and especially utilizing the state that we live in. We're surrounded with beautiful, beautiful Mother Nature, and that's something we should definitely be tying into everything that we're taught within school, within life. I love that you were able to learn that growing up.
Yeah, I feel fortunate, definitely. So now also one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you today was because I came across your fundraising page on Facebook through another friend. I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? People need to know about this. Because what is happening on the Warm Springs Reservation, I think it's also, there are a lot of problems in other Native American communities as well. And I don't think the media does a very good job telling those stories. And they're incredibly important. Which is why I also, wanted to talk to you. So tell us about what is going on at Warm Springs. What are the organizations that are trying to help? What are they doing? And how did you get involved?
Yeah, so I'll start with how I got involved. So on, what was it, June 31st, I was on, Facebook, and it was the evening of June 31st. I was on Facebook, seen many people, talking about the water crisis happening on the reservation. And it's just like the reality of this reoccurring thing that's been happening on and off for about the last 2 years. And that just kind of like struck me, because that's where my friends, my family, that's where I grew up, and that's my community, my home, and everyone who lives there, and I was just hurting for them. I was to a point where I was like crying and just feeling really sad. And I currently live in Portland, Oregon, and just knowing that I can't physically be there. I haven't been home in 6 months due to the pandemic.
Right.
And just keeping in mind the many elders, the youth, the very young children. Many of my friends had recently had babies brought into their family, and just had newborns. So just thinking about their lack of access to water was really weighing heavily on me. So how I got involved is I literally sent a text message to my boss, Carina Miller, and I was like, I have to do something. Like what can I do? And she is basically like the community outreach coordinator at the Warm Springs Community Action Team, which is one of the organizations that's on the front lines of getting our people the resources and necessary items to continue to just get this stuff to our community. But I messaged her and I was like, what can I do? And I was like, I want to do either like a supply run or do something, because I can't just sit back and continue to just let this all unfold while our people are hurting right now. Like, they need stuff. And so that's how I got involved, because Carina, when she texted me back, she's like, there's been a number of supplies. She's like, honestly, we just need to get 200 million, and this is how. And that's how the Choosh Fund came about. So yeah, kind of full circle. I'm sure we're going to answer this in the future to talk more about the Choosh Fund. But yeah, that's kind of how I got involved. And there's a number of organizations and people who are playing a vital role in making sure that we are meeting the needs of the community. Many organizations and different departments within the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs are playing a vital role in making sure that our community is getting what they need.
Right. And so I think what I find so baffling is why, like, this shouldn't be like water. That's something all people should just have access to. Like the fact that there needs to be something to raise money so people can have water, that just seems so not okay. So how is this happening in the first place?
Right, right. So, I mean, there's a lot, and I definitely don't want to speak over my community, and I don't want to speak for my community. I'm just one individual who has this opinion, so I really want to flag that before I answer this question. But there's a number of things that are playing into this. It goes from the leadership and on every level, the state, the federal. There's many different things that have got us to this point. And I just, again, I want to acknowledge that, like, this really isn't my place to speak on this. But I'm just going to leave it at that and say this has been an ongoing issue. And I think at this point, like, my main focus is getting our people what they need right now in this moment. Because I know a lot of people are like, well, we could have done this, we could have done this, we could have done this. And I'm like, okay, that is all important. And we need to focus on what we can do now with the current circumstances we have. So, like, for me, I think focusing on the past is what is holding a lot of us back from moving forward. And I'm just like, I'm so stuck on what we can do right now for the next 7 generations to be able to stop being in survival mode and continue to move forward with what we're doing today.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, obviously, it's, people like you who are taking action, who are going to make the change happen. It might be slow, it might be, it's a process, but at least, something's happening. So what is the goal amount of money that you guys would like to raise to help this crisis?
So overall, we are hoping to, well, I mean, honestly, like, it's going to take 200 million to fix this water infrastructure. So that's pretty much the end goal. Right now on my on the Facebook fundraiser that you may have seen, I have the current goal set at 100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. The end goal is 200 million, and that's going to fix the water infrastructure at Warm Springs.
Right. And so the infrastructure itself it's just broken and it needs to be repaired, correct?
Yeah, correct. And in the past 2 to 3 years, there's just been band-aid fixes to where it's only been enough to make that repair and just hope for the best. So now it's to the point where we need, like, a whole new system, pretty much, for the most part.
Right. And
In simpler
so
terms, yeah.
right. And so these are families, these are households who they don't have access to running water, right?
Correct. Correct. There's 60% of the residents on the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs Reservation are without running water, or it is very low pressured running water. And mind you, all of this is undrinkable. So if they have access to water, there is certain areas within the reservation who do have access to water. It is drinkable. It is okay, but there are other areas, like the 60%, the ones who do not have access to running water, or just, again, very low pressured but also undrinkable. So they're on a boil water notice. So a lot of them, even though they do have access to running water, they are having to boil it to be able to make it drinkable, used for any other stuff that they may need it for.
Yeah. And of course, right now we are in the coronavirus pandemic, and you add that on top of this, and how are people feeling about that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely with the pandemic, I would say, there's a lot of just being careful. Like, in the midst of all of this. Like it really is unfortunate that our tribe does not have a basic human right at this moment, a very basic human right. And at the same time, we're in the middle of a pandemic where a lot of us who are very privileged to have water right now do have access to being clean, pretty much being able to wash our hands, being able to clean off our tables, wash our dishes, and really just, you know, keep clean, I guess, for the most part, and keep our areas and spaces clean. And like, I think a lot of people don't realize how much water plays into keeping us all healthy in the midst of a pandemic.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, has there been any response from the Oregon government, from leaders?
Um, right now there's a lot of behind the scenes work that I'm not going to speak on right now because I'm just not sure how it is playing out. But I will say that the BIPOC caucus has communicated with us and is hoping to work with our tribal council to come up with some kind of solution. I'm not sure how that conversation is going, but I am aware that they
Right.
have reached out, and that in itself meant a lot to us.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad there's been at least some communication.
Right.
That's something. So, and when you think about not just Warm Springs, but reservations across the United States who are dealing, with similar problems. What kind of changes would you like to see in the next, few years? How can things get better?
Yeah, I mean, definitely getting every single one of us access to a basic human right, water. Like you said, other reservations across the country are also experiencing this. Navajo Nation down south in the southern United States, they've 30-40% of them are without water every day. That's not just happening in the middle of a pandemic. It's always been like this, and that's just something that a lot of people do not know about, simply because a lot of people, they don't pay attention to what's happening within sovereign nations. And for the most part, I know many people who don't even know what a sovereign nation is. So getting into everything that comes with being a sovereign nation, it's it's just like the top of the surface that people see. They know indigenous people are here, they know some are on reservations, but knowing what happens within the reservations is something that a lot of people don't even attempt to educate themselves on or care to learn about for the most part.
Right. And so on that note, what do you think, what can people do to educate themselves more and to get involved?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, land acknowledgements are becoming a more popular thing, becoming more regular, and I think just simply acknowledging the land you are on, looking up, because every single one of us are living on stolen land, and
Yeah.
it's like just getting down to the root of the land that we are on. Like, who was there prior to us living here? Who was there prior to this becoming what it is right now? And looking into how it became from the traditional homelands to what it is now, and looking into those treaties, the many places that are the many tribes that were removed from those lands onto reservations, some even losing their how you say it, their like name and stuff. So
Yeah.
like when I say that, it's like an example of that is like the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. Up and down the Columbia River, there was over 24 tribes who were living on these lands, in this area. When everyone was put on the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, we now only recognize the Warm Springs, Wasco, and Paiute within our tribe. And within that, a lot of them lost their names, lost their the original names of their tribes, because they're just simply, that's what white settlers decided. That's what that's kind of how it was, and that's very real across the entire country. There's a number of federally recognized tribes across the country, but here within Oregon there is 9, and within those there are different bands of tribes that again, they're federally recognized, and there's some who didn't get that recognition simply because that's what was decided.
Right. Which is just, I mean, it's terrible. And again, and even, in our education systems, we're never, like, I was not taught that in school. Everything is very whitewashed, and they just give you, yeah, this happened, but they don't get into, no, actually, this is what happened. And this is everything that was taken away from these people. And it's obviously unfortunate, but I think because of the social climate we are in right now, a lot of these issues are coming to light, not only within, the Black Lives Matter movement, but also I think the acknowledgement of the indigenous peoples and Native Americans in this country, that their voices, I'm hoping, will be heard more now, and that people are waking up to that and really taking all that in. And hopefully, I'm hoping people will want to educate themselves and, look past what they've been told,
Right. Yeah. And it's like, getting to that, like, again, like thinking about the systems, like the many systems that are here in the United States, they're built on white supremacy. And that goes with everything that is in this country. That goes from like education to our healthcare system to our political system, like our prison system. Like everything in this country is built on white supremacy and has it embedded in their own system. So yeah, I mean, even with education, we're all learning from a Western perspective, and we're not we're learning from, like, from the very Western colonial perspective. And I think a lot of people are just now realizing that. And I think that's where a lot of people are also starting to get frustrated, because they're like you just said, I didn't know about this until just very recently. So that's kind of like, this is where we have to dive deep into the systems and really untangle it and pull out the truth that that has been hidden and pushed down and swept under the rug for so long. Yeah.
I know, that is completely accurate. And I think that is what's going to start happening, which is good. It's unfortunate that it took so long, and that it took a series of very tragic events to wake people up. But I think that awakening is happening, and coming back to the importance of voting, that we need to vote. We need to really research our, people who are running for office, even at the, city level, city, state, county, all of that stuff, and obviously nationally. So yeah, there's work to do, but hopefully it can get started.
Right. Yeah, I know. I'm all for voting. I enjoy voting. I enjoy teaching people about voting. I enjoy helping people understand what voting does. And like you said, it's important to look into the candidates, look into who's currently there, whose voices are not at the table, whose voices are being ignored, whose voices are amongst the most vulnerable, and seeing if they're being reflected within office. And I think right now, like, especially for me, working with Carina Miller, who's running for Oregon Senate District 30, that is huge. Because in Oregon, there has never been a Oregon tribal member's voice present within our legislative system. We've been here since time immemorial, and it's just like, we've never been in the Oregon legislature. Like our voices are being heard there, but not as consistently as someone who identifies as white. So it's like who's being represented here. And just looking at the BIPOC communities, like, is there enough of our voices in there? Looking at the LGBTQ community, is there enough of their voices in there? Looking at the disabled community, is there enough of their voices in there? And just looking at the many voices across the state who's being left out. And that's what I think about when I'm talking to people about voting, because I'm like, you really have to look at this. You really have to look at what they know, what they have voted on in the past, and if their experience along with professional experience goes hand in hand with your values. And that's just kind of where I'm at with Carina. She's an all around candidate. She's done so much stuff in her life, and she's super young, like, but she's very wise. She's been at this table with so many people and has advocated for not only our tribe, but almost all Indigenous people across Oregon to hopefully get us all on the same page and get our voices heard.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm sure she's an inspiration for so many people in the state, which is just amazing. It's really great. And obviously, absolutely, she is a voice that needs to be heard and that represents a much larger voice it's past time that those voices be listened to. So to end here, I just want everyone to know where, if they're interested in getting involved, if they want to donate.
Choosh Fund.
Choosh. Yes, thank you. The Choosh Fund, and also the MRG Foundation, which is the Mackenzie River Gathering Foundation, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. So those are both two, they're sort of interlinked, yeah?
Yeah, they're literally the same. The MRG Foundation is basically the home of the Choosh Fund. So a little bit about the Choosh Fund. It was established in August 2019 in response to the need of clean water at the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs at the time. It was approved by the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs Council by resolution and a MOU, and it was signed by the tribe and the MRG Foundation. So this is like in a partnership, and basically the MRG Foundation, this is like a very unique fund to be able to get money from either outside entities, businesses, individuals into the tribe. So right now there's like no way other than like grants or pretty much grants to be able to get money into a tribe. But this is a way to directly donate money into the tribe to help specifically with the water crisis happening within the reservation at this moment.
Great, fantastic. So I will be sure to include the links to those donation pages. So if anyone who's listening wants to get involved, please do so. Thank you so much, Amanda. Also, if you do live in Central Oregon, if you live in District 30, check out Carina Miller's campaign. And yes, Amanda, it was wonderful having you as a guest. Thank you so much for sharing all of that amazing information. And I wish you a very good weekend.
Thank you so much. I think I want to shed light on one more thing before we go that just came across my mind. When you asked about what's happening in the Oregon political, like if they've done anything else, I forgot to shed light on House Bill 5030. So this bill, they're calling it, it's basically the result of this bill is basically going to allocate $7.8 million to the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, and this money is coming from the Oregon Lottery Fund, which I want to say is $330+ million is going to be allocated to different Oregon projects across the state, and one of them is going to be the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. So in 2021, there's going to be 7.8 million allocated to the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. So that was good work on our legislator. Yeah, I just wanted to shed light on that just before we hop off of here, because I don't want to miss that, and very thankful for them. And I just needed to acknowledge that because it just popped in my mind. But yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate your time and offering us your platform to shed light on the many things happening on our reservation and across the state. So yeah, thank you once again, Tara.